quick browsing? Use it to spot patterns, pull links, and build your own research list. Qnotables.com. Browse the notables, verify the facts, stay informed. All reports can be found on qresearch or qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here. From the Q Research Board's January 14, 2025, President Trump says he held a very good call with Venezuela's interim president Delcy Rodriguez, discussing oil, minerals, trade, and national security. He says the U.S. is helping Venezuela stabilize and recover after the ouster of Nicolas Maduro, and hints at a long-term partnership between Washington and Caracas. The message to Americans is clear. The White House sees Venezuela as a future strategic and energy ally, not a failed state. A speech at London's Chatham House is being framed online as the end of the Western alliance, after establishment voices admitted deep fractures between the U.S. and Europe on security, trade, and migration. In reality, NATO and the EU still function, but there is growing public and elite disagreement over open-ended wars, sanctions, and global commitments. The takeaway is that what used to be a unified Western bloc now looks divided and uncertain. With 1 week until the Davos summit, critics are claiming Chatham House admits defeat as global elites scramble to respond to populist uprisings, debt crises, and public anger over inflation. The World Economic Forum faces intense backlash for years of pushing ESG, lockdowns, and top-down climate rules, while ordinary people struggle with basic costs. Expect a softer tone in public speeches, but behind closed doors, the same networks will still push for centralized control. In Medford, Oregon, left-wing protesters staged a die-in outside an ICE facility, lying on the ground to protest deportations and federal immigration enforcement. Video from the scene shows demonstrators blocking access and chanting while officers monitor the perimeter. Supporters say they're defending migrants.
Don'tDeleteMeBro.com.
From the Q Research Board's January 14th, critics say they're activist networks. State officials insist they're tightening oversight, but the dollar amounts involved suggest systemic failure, not a few bad actors. If even a fraction of these claims hold up, taxpayers in Minnesota have been taken for a very expensive ride. Elon Musk is publicly warning that history will not be kind to UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Musk has criticized Starmer over speech restrictions, climate-driven energy policy, and a soft approach to mass migration. Supporters of the government call Musk an outside agitator, but his comments resonate with many Brits angry about crime, censorship, and rising costs. When the world's richest man says your leadership will age badly, it adds pressure in London. In Minneapolis, a woman was dragged from her car by ICE agents after she allegedly blocked an enforcement operation during a protest. Video shows officers smashing a window and pulling her out as she shouts that she is disabled and on the way to a doctor. Activists identify her as an LGBT and racial justice organizer and call it brutality. Federal officials say she interfered with lawful action. The incident is now a new flashpoint in the ICE protest debate. Iran has issued a notum closing its airspace to all flights, except international arrivals and departures with special permission, as fears grow of potential U.S. military action. Flight tracking data shows commercial traffic rapidly diverting around Iranian and Iraqi skies. Airlines and insurers treat these moves as serious risk indicators, not drills. For travelers and crews, tonight's message is simple. Stay clear of Iranian airspace until the danger passes. Officials now say Iran is also restricting routes from the direction of Iraq, effectively sealing much of its airspace during a period of maximum tension with Washington. Western militaries are signaling that a U.S. strike package could be ready, while Iran warns neighbors not to host any attack. With memories of past shootdowns and missile exchanges, regional governments are urging citizens to leave hot zones and avoid non-essential travel. Flight tracking maps over Iraq and Iran show vast empty corridors where commercial jets normally cross, confirming that the airspace is effectively clear. Safety advisories already label both countries as high risk for civilian aircraft thanks to past missile strikes and conflict. When you see that many planes divert all at once, it usually means military planners want the skies uncluttered. Tonight, those maps tell a story. Something serious is either happening or about to happen. President Trump has issued a new proclamation on critical minerals, linking America's resource security directly to silver and other strategic metals. The order aims to fast-track domestic mining, ease certain regulations, and reduce dependence on hostile regimes for key inputs in energy, weapons, and technology. For silver stackers and hard asset investors, this is a clear signal. Washington now sees these metals not just as commodities, but as national security assets. Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas is under heavy fire from critics who say her hardline stance against Russia and push for ever tighter sanctions are hurting Europe's real interests. Commentators argue that her rhetoric, cheered on by some Brussels elites, risks deeper energy shocks and further escalation with Moscow. Supporters call her principled, opponents call it fanaticism. Either way, a small Baltic state leader now has outsized influence over the continent's security and energy map. The Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act has been signed into law, restoring whole milk as an option in school cafeterias nationwide. For years, federal rules forced kids towards skim and low-fat products in the name of nutrition guidelines that many parents and farmers questioned. The new law reflects updated science on healthy fats and strong bipartisan support for local dairy. It is a rare win for common sense in school food policy. In Cherokee County, a father has been sentenced to life in prison for aggravated child abuse after a court found shocking, long-term mistreatment of his child. Prosecutors described patterns of severe physical harm and neglect that left lasting injuries. The judge made it clear the sentence was meant to send a message. The justice system will not tolerate extreme abuse behind closed doors. For the community, it is both justice and a sobering reminder of hidden violence. Senator Lindsey Graham is signaling that help is on the way after meeting exiled Iranian Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. Graham and other hawks see Pahlavi as a potential figurehead for a post-Islamic Republic Iran and are openly discussing more support for opposition groups. Human rights advocates welcome attention to Tehran's abuses, but critics warn this could slide toward regime change policy. Either way, Washington is again talking about picking winners inside Iran. Major precious metals dealer APMEX has reportedly instituted a $10,000 minimum on certain retail silver purchases, citing demand, inventory, and transaction costs. For small buyers, that effectively shuts them out of big lot deals and pushes them toward higher premium coins and rounds. The move fuels speculation that physical silver supplies are tighter than official prices suggest. When big dealers raise the bar this high, it tells you something about strain in the physical market. New medical reports confirm that the ICE officer involved in the fatal confrontation with Renee Good suffered internal bleeding after being struck by her SUV. That detail backs earlier claims that he was seriously injured before using deadly force. Supporters of ICE say this proves agents faced a lethal threat. Critics still question tactics and escalation. But the fact remains, ramming a vehicle into armed officers turns a protest into a potentially deadly attack. Vice President J.D. Vance is weighing in on the Renee Good case, bluntly saying that ramming a law enforcement officer with a car causes injuries. His comment underscores the administration's line: portray the incident as an attack on federal agents, not a peaceful protest gone wrong. Whether people agree with his tone or not, the message is aimed at deterring copycats and reinforcing that using a vehicle as a weapon will be met with force. Conservative commentators report that some left-wing women are deliberately trying to hook up with ICE agents in order to dox them and expose their personal information online. Talk radio discussions and social media posts describe a tactic where activists use flirtation and dating to gather details on agents' identities, families, and home addresses. If accurate, this crosses from protest into targeted harassment and raises real safety concerns for frontline officers and their loved ones. In a recent statement, Vice President J.D. Vance said, "We have made great progress in making this a safer, more secure, and more prosperous nation," pointing to immigration enforcement, energy policy, and crime as key wins. Supporters see concrete gains in border security and economic stability. Opponents say the administration is overstating success. But politically, the line is simple and effective. After years of chaos, they claim America is finally back on a more secure footing. Australia's leadership is pushing tougher hate speech rules and stricter gun laws after terror plots and mass casualty attacks rattled the country. The Prime Minister and state leaders argue that limiting extremist speech and tightening firearms access are necessary to protect a diverse society. Civil liberties advocates warn that these laws will chill free expression and disarm law-abiding citizens. Once again, Australians are being told to trade freedom for a promise of safety. Hollywood is in upheaval as David and Larry Ellison push aggressive deals to expand their media empire, including a hostile bid involving Paramount Skydance and a fight over Warner Brothers, Discovery, and HBO. Lawsuits and shareholder battles accuse the Ellisons of overreach, while they argue they can rescue struggling legacy studios. Behind the legal jargon, the real story is control. Who will shape what Americans see on their screens for the next decade? Texas Congressman Chip Roy offered an amendment to strip staff and office budgets from two controversial D.C. judges, James Boasberg and Deborah Boardman, accusing them of left-wing judicial activism. The measure failed after 46 Republicans joined Democrats to vote it down. That roll call is already circulating among grassroots conservatives as a betrayal. The fight shows how deep the anger runs on the right toward a judiciary seen as politically weaponized. Across Russia, people are marking the Old New Year, an unofficial holiday rooted in the old Julian calendar that lags 13 days behind the modern one. Families gather, TV shows replay New Year concerts, and some use it as a quieter, more traditional celebration after the flashier January 1st festivities. In a country under sanctions and at war, the holiday offers a brief return to cultural continuity and national tradition. A United Nations Child Rights Committee is advancing new language that critics say undermines parental authority and promotes abortion and gender ideology under the banner of children's rights. Draft guidance pushes easier access to abortion for minors and opposes parental consent in key areas. Several countries and pro-family groups are pushing back, arguing the committee is exceeding its mandate and trying to rewrite family law above national constitutions. Parents worldwide should be paying close attention.
At shop.isitwaya.com, everything you buy supports Qn.top, the place where people talk freely no matter what. Check out our Qn honey pot, a jar of yummy honey that's as strong as your voice. Put it on toast or in tea. It's not just honey, it's freedom in every bite. Then there's Qn butter, a smooth handmade skin cream that makes you feel good while you fight for what's right. Awesome wood and pieces for display only. Hang them up or set them out. They're for showing off Qn's tough spirit. Want to help even more? Get a proto membership. So go to shop.isitwaya.com now and grab some goodies. Help Qn.top keep free speech alive, and let's keep the ideas flowing loud and free.
All reports can be found on QResearch or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here.
From the Q Research Boards, January 14, 2025. New reports circulating online allege a money laundering loop connecting U.S. taxpayer funds, migrant remittances, foreign NGOs, and the Democrat fundraising platform Act Blue. The claim is that remittances and foreign aid support overseas groups, which then donate into U.S. politics through Act Blue and aligned nonprofits that pay professional protesters. While the full picture is still being debated, the pattern raises hard questions about foreign influence, transparency, and who really benefits from endless overseas spending. Trump signs Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act at Oval Office ceremony. At the White House, President Trump hosts a bill signing ceremony for the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act, surrounded by lawmakers, dairy farmers, and school children. The law brings whole and 2% milk back to school cafeterias for the first time in over a decade. Trump says the bill is a win for kids' health, parents, and America's dairy farmers. Executions in Iran have stopped, Venezuela leaker jailed. President Trump says he's been assured Iran has halted executions amid mass protests, warning Tehran that if the killing resumes, the U.S. will respond. He also announces that a Venezuela leaker tied to sensitive information about recent operations has been identified and is now behind bars, calling it a victory for national security. Trump reiterates, no plan for executions in Iran. Speaking to reporters, President Trump repeats that U.S. intelligence has been told the killing in Iran is stopping and that there are no plans for executions. He frames the pause as a direct result of American pressure and vows to find out if the regime backtracks, stressing that Washington is watching Iran's behavior closely. DOJ. Leaker to raided Washington Post journalist is in custody. The Justice Department says a government leaker who allegedly fed classified information to a Washington Post reporter, whose home was later raided, is now behind bars. Officials claim the arrest shows the administration will aggressively pursue those who expose sensitive operations, arguing leaks put both national security and U.S. personnel at risk. Trump links Greenland, Venezuela to U.S. leverage. In off-the-cuff remarks, President Trump says Denmark can't do a thing if Russia or China try to move on Greenland, but insists the United States can, pointing to recent actions in Venezuela as proof of American leverage. He argues U.S. power, not European diplomacy, ultimately deters hostile moves against key territories. Got milk? Public reacts to school milk overhaul. After the president signed the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act, Got Milk is back in the headlines as parents, nutritionists, and farm groups react. Supporters say kids will finally get milk they actually want to drink, while critics warn about higher saturated fat. For now, school districts are weighing how quickly to switch menus. Colorado court hears appeal of Tina Peters' conviction. In Colorado, former Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters is back in court as a state appeals panel hears arguments in her election-related case. Peters' lawyers say she was exposing vulnerabilities. Prosecutors insist she broke the law by tampering with voting equipment. The outcome could shape how far whistleblower defenses can go in election disputes. Lawmakers probe DNC and RNC pipe bomb investigations. On Capitol Hill, members of Congress hold a rare joint hearing into the unsolved DNC and RNC pipe bomb incidents. Lawmakers press federal agents on missed leads, surveillance gaps, and why no suspect has been charged years later. Families and activists are demanding answers, arguing equal justice requires solving politically sensitive cases too. Senate grills Biden-era Afghan refugee vetting. The Senate Judiciary Committee is examining the Biden administration's Afghan parolee program, focusing on vetting failures and national security risks. Senators hear testimony that dozens of evacuees may have had terror-linked hits in databases, yet still entered the U.S. Republicans call it a Trojan horse, while officials defended the program as life-saving. Democrats push Nope Act to limit crackdowns on dissent. House Democrats promote the so-called Nope Act, legislation aimed at restricting a president's ability to label political opponents and protesters as national security threats. Sponsors say it protects free speech and prevents abuse of power. Critics counter that it could tie the hands of law enforcement when unrest turns violent or foreign-backed. Easier to arrest criminal aliens in jails than on streets. Former ICE Director Tom Homan says one agent can walk into a jail and arrest one criminal alien. But when cities release them into the community, ICE needs a whole team to track them down. He blames sanctuary policies for forcing dangerous street arrests and insists cooperation with local jails keeps Americans safer. German troops arrive in Greenland outside NATO framework. Reports out of the Arctic say Germany has quietly deployed non-NATO flagged troops to Greenland for cold weather training and infrastructure support. Berlin frames the move as routine cooperation with Copenhagen, but the deployment raises eyebrows in Washington as tensions grow over control of the strategically located island and its rare earth minerals. Secret Service debuts mobile digital forensics lab. The U.S. Secret Service is rolling out a new mobile forensic truck capable of analyzing phones, laptops, and other devices directly at crime scenes. Agents say the unit lets them pull data in real time during threat investigations, from counterfeiting to assassination plots, shrinking the window for suspects to coordinate or destroy evidence. Smuggling LGBT dissidents out of Iran. Former Ambassador Richard Grinnell says he's been helping smuggle gays and lesbians out of Iran, describing it as a covert rescue effort from a brutal regime. He says, for the first time, one person asked to wait, hoping Trump's pressure campaign will succeed. The remarks highlight quiet networks moving persecuted dissidents to safety. Trump administration halts visa processing for dozens of nations. The administration has frozen visa processing for roughly 75 countries, flagged for security or document fraud concerns. Officials say the pause allows a full review of consular procedures and intelligence sharing. Critics warn it will separate families and hurt business, but the White House insists national security must come first. Ukrainian drones hit targets inside Russia, killing 3. Military sources report that Ukrainian long-range drones struck targets inside Russia, killing at least 3 people and wounding several others. Moscow calls the attacks terrorism and vows retaliation. Kyiv frames the strikes as legitimate self-defense, aimed at military facilities supporting Russia's invasion. The cross-border campaign shows no sign of slowing.
Every voice matters. The power of free speech is more important than ever. Imagine a place where you can share your thoughts freely, explore new ideas, and engage in meaningful conversations anonymously. With online anonymity, you can express yourself without fear of judgment. It's about freedom, creativity, and connection. Join the conversation that matters. Embrace your voice. Celebrate your freedom. Visit 8kun.top today. That's 8kun.top.
All reports can be found on qresearch or qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here.
From the Q Research Boards. January 14, 2025, Iranian cargo ship Rona sinks in the Caspian Sea. Regional outlets say the Iranian cargo vessel Rona, reportedly en route to Russia, has sunk in the Caspian Sea. Details remain sparse, with early reports suggesting mechanical failure or a possible explosion on board. Tehran and Moscow are monitoring for environmental damage and potential links to sanctions-busting shipments. Clintons could face prison over subpoena fight. Online commentator Akhad Mitriev is claiming checkmate, arguing that Bill and Hillary Clinton could face prison time for allegedly failing to testify before Congress. While no such charges have been announced yet, the post reflects ongoing anger over what many see as a double standard in how politically connected figures are treated. Major outage disrupts U.S. cell networks. Millions of Americans are reporting disruptions across major cellular carriers, with Verizon bearing the brunt of the outage and spillover issues hitting calls to other networks. Some users say even 911 calls briefly failed. Regulators are now pressing for answers on whether a software failure or cyber issue caused the widespread breakdown. U.S. warns enemies as drone swarm capabilities showcased. A senior defense official is warning foreign adversaries not to test our resolve, touting America's new lethal drone swarm technology. The statement comes as the Pentagon reveals footage of coordinated unmanned systems, overwhelming simulated air defenses, sending a clear signal that any attack on U.S. forces could face a rapid, high-tech response. Think Hessians. Warning about foreign-hired guns. Commentators are urging Americans to think Hessians, drawing a comparison with foreign mercenaries hired against the colonies during the Revolution. The phrase is being used as a warning against outsourcing security to private contractors or foreign units, arguing that nations that rely on hired guns can lose both control and legitimacy. RSF drone strike reportedly kills Sudanese commanders. In Sudan, reports say rapid support forces used drones to strike a high-level military meeting, killing senior officers and dozens of troops. The attack underscores how cheap armed drones are reshaping conflicts, giving irregular forces air power that once belonged only to national armies, and raising the stakes in Sudan's civil war. Rubio. U.S. sends first relief ship to Cuba after Hurricane Melissa. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the United States is sending its first humanitarian shipment to Cuba to help victims of Hurricane Melissa. The aid package includes food, medical supplies, and generators. Rubio calls it an example of helping the Cuban people, not the regime, as Washington tries to balance pressure with compassion. Report alleges Blue Cross helping enable Somali fraud in Minnesota. An investigative report out of Minnesota accuses Blue Cross programs of unintentionally helping the Somali community carry out large-scale benefits fraud that is spreading nationwide. The piece claims weak oversight and political pressure allowed bogus billing schemes to flourish. State officials are under pressure to audit the programs and recover taxpayer money. What storm, Mr. President? Phrase resurfaces. The phrase, "What storm, Mr. President?" is trending again, a reference to Trump's 2017 remark about the calm before the storm during a White House military photo op. Supporters see it as a nod to promised cleanup of corruption and the deep state, while critics say it fueled years of conspiracy speculation online. Viral doctor video claims ways to unclog arteries. A new online video from Dr. Eric Berg is spreading fast, promising to show viewers how to unclog your arteries and touting a best meal to reverse heart disease. The clip promotes low-carb, nutrient-dense foods and lifestyle changes. Cardiologists continue to remind the public that anyone with heart disease should follow medical advice, not internet fads. Spotlight on South Africa's silver production analysts are watching South Africa's silver sector as production recovers from recent lows but remains far below 1980s highs. Output has risen from pandemic-era dips, yet mining reports show pressure from aging shafts, power costs, and regulatory uncertainty. Traders say any shock in South African supply could tighten an already strained global silver market. Denmark bristles at Trump's desire to conquer Greenland. Danish officials say it's clear. President Trump has a desire to conquer Greenland after tense meetings over U.S. basing and resource access. Copenhagen insists Greenland is not for sale and warns that aggressive U.S. rhetoric could destabilize NATO unity in the Arctic, even as Washington argues control of the island is vital for security. New FOIA raises questions on COVID PCR test accuracy. Newly released documents from a Freedom of Information Act request show U.S. intelligence agencies' classified and heavily redacted internal assessments on COVID-19 PCR testing. The files suggest long-running concerns about false positives and data reliability that were shielded from public debate, fueling fresh scrutiny of how pandemic case numbers were reported. Dutch commentator banned from UK after criticizing Starmer. Dutch right-wing commentator Eva Vlaardingerbroek says Britain has banned her from entering the country just days after she slammed Prime Minister Keir Starmer on X over women's safety and online censorship. The Home Office revoked her travel authorization, saying her presence is not conducive to the public good, sparking free speech backlash. France pushes Ukraine to spend EU loan on European arms. In Brussels, President Macron is lobbying to ensure Ukraine spends a massive new $90 billion EU loan primarily on European-made weapons, not American systems. Paris argues the money should rebuild Europe's own defense industry. Other member states worry that strict Buy European rules could delay deliveries while Kiev is still under fire. KC-135 tankers from Hawaii refuel undisclosed U.S. aircraft. The Air Force confirms 2 KC-135 Stratotankers out of Hawaii are providing refueling support to unidentified U.S. aircraft over the Pacific. Officials won't say which platforms are being topped off, but the missions extend the reach of bombers and fighters across the region as Washington signals it is ready for long-range operations if needed. Timothy Busfield case intersects with broader Hollywood scandal narrative. Actor Timothy Busfield faces serious child sex abuse charges after being held without bail, and commentators are tying his case to a wider web of alleged Hollywood predators, including the Reiner network. While prosecutors focus on the specific counts, online investigators say a broader entertainment industry cleanup is long overdue. Former Ukraine PM Tymoshenko raided in corruption probe. Authorities in Ukraine have reportedly raided properties linked to former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko as part of a new corruption investigation. Officials say they are targeting illicit enrichment and misuse of state funds. Kiev Western backers have demanded tougher anti-corruption measures as a condition for continued military and financial support.
Don'tDeleteMeBro.com. 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 Share the site with others. Don'tDeleteMeBro.com. 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 Share the site with others. Don'tDeleteMeBro.com.
That's all for now. Stay alert, stay informed, and never hand your thinking over to anyone on a screen, including me. God bless you, God bless our troops, and God bless the United States of America.